Hey everyone, welcome back. You know how much we all want to improve our English skills? We found a great podcast called English Dose.
Yeah.
They have some really practical tips that we wanted to share in this deep dive.
Yeah, they had some interesting ideas on goal setting
Oh yeah, for
that
sure.
really stood out to me.
So instead of just diving into a textbook, they encourage you to really think about what you want to get out of learning English.
Right. And I think a lot of times
What are your goals?
we just think, I want to learn English,
Yeah,
but we don't really think about,
specifics.
yeah, like what does that actually mean?
Yeah, exactly. And English Dose even gives an example.
Yeah.
Instead of just being like, oh, I want to be fluent in English, you could make it more specific. Like, this week, I'm going to learn 10 new words.
Yeah, that's a great way
It's
to,
much more manageable, right?
yeah, and I think it just helps you stay motivated
Yeah, totally.
when you have those smaller goals that you can actually achieve.
Yeah, and you can see the progress. Like, oh, I learned those 10 words.
Exactly.
And that keeps you going. English Dose also talks about something else that's super important.
Mm-hmm.
The 4 core skills of language learning.
Oh, absolutely.
Reading, writing, listening, and speaking. Sometimes it's easy to focus on just one.
Yeah, you might really enjoy reading, but then maybe speaking is really hard for you.
Yeah. And they stress how important it is to work on all 4 skills.
Yeah, for well-rounded fluency.
And they gave some good examples of how to practice each skill. Like for reading, they suggest checking out short stories,
Oh, yeah.
blogs, even just news articles.
Yeah, even just like a couple paragraphs a day.
Yeah, just to get that exposure. And for writing, they recommend keeping a journal in English.
Right.
Doesn't have to be, super
It doesn't
fancy.
just have to be a novel.
Yeah, just writing down your thoughts, what you did that day.
I think it's a good way to,
Get comfortable.
yeah, just start getting comfortable with the language.
Yeah. And to practice putting those sentences together.
Mm-hmm.
For listening, they say to immerse yourself in English
Yeah.
as much as possible.
There's so many resources for that.
Yeah, like movies, music, podcasts.
Yeah, definitely.
And they even suggested talking to yourself in English.
Which might feel silly.
Oh yeah, it might feel a little weird at first, but
But there's a reason why language teachers always say to do that.
yeah, they swear by it.
It's because you're actually like producing the language.
Okay.
So you're thinking in English, you're forming those sentences.
You're not just passively absorbing it,
Right.
you're actively creating it. And if talking to yourself is a bit too much,
Yeah.
they said you could also just try thinking in English
Yeah.
for a few minutes every day.
Even that can make a difference.
Just little things like that. And of course, finding a language partner is ideal if you can.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
But even if you don't have one, you can still do those solo exercises
Yep.
to build up your confidence.
Yeah.
Now, something else that English Dose emphasized was the power of routine.
Hmm.
They suggest aiming for 20 to 30 minutes of study each day.
Yeah. And that really ties in nicely
Yeah.
with all the research out there about spaced repetition.
Oh, tell me about that.
So basically, the idea is that
I love this stuff.
you revisit information at increasingly longer intervals.
Oh.
And it helps you move that information from short-term memory into long-term memory.
So by having that consistent routine, you're helping your brain
Yeah, exactly.
make those connections.
It's like you're
I love
building a pathway in your brain,
Yeah.
and the more you go over it, the stronger that pathway becomes.
So it's not just about cramming everything in at once. It's
It's
about
not.
consistency.
It's about revisiting it regularly.
Okay, that makes so much sense.
Hmm.
And English Dose also talked about incorporating technology into your learning,
Yeah, of course.
which is great because there's so many cool tools out there now.
Yeah, there really are.
Like Quizlet for vocabulary practice, Grammarly for writing, YouTube for tons of different English learning resources.
Yeah, I mean, YouTube has everything.
Right. There's something for everyone. But they also said it's important to remember those traditional methods.
Yeah, like flashcards.
Yeah, flashcards, good old-fashioned note-taking.
Yeah.
Sometimes those could be just as effective.
Yeah, they can, and they can be really helpful for certain types of learners.
So it's all about figuring out what works best for you. Oh, and speaking of making things interesting, English Dose
Mm-hmm.
had some really cool tips for making learning fun.
Yeah, because if it's not fun,
You're not going to stick with it.
you're not going to want to do it.
Exactly. Like one thing they suggested was creating silly sentences with new vocabulary words,
Yeah, well, that's a good one.
just to kind of make it more memorable.
Yeah.
Or even describing everyday objects in English,
Yeah, it's a great way to,
like a little challenge.
yeah, and it forces you to think about those words.
Yeah, and to actually use them.
And I think the other benefit of that is You're associating those words with positive emotions,
Oh, that's true.
and that helps with memory and retention.
So, yeah, fun is not just a bonus.
Right.
It's actually beneficial for your learning.
Yeah, it's a brain booster.
I love that. And finally, English Dose ended with a really encouraging message about not being afraid of making mistakes.
Mistakes are inevitable.
They really are, and they actually show that you're learning and growing.
That's how we learn.
Yeah, exactly.
We make mistakes, we figure out what we did wrong,
And we try again.
and we try again.
They had talked about having a growth mindset,
Yeah.
which means seeing mistakes as opportunities to learn
Yeah.
rather than as failures.
It's all about embracing the process.
Exactly. So to recap all the awesome tips from English Dose,
Yes.
set clear goals,
Break them down.
make them manageable,
Yeah.
practice all 4 skills
Reading, writing, listening, and speaking.
consistently. Find the tech tools that work for you.
But don't forget about the traditional methods.
And most importantly, make it fun.
Yeah. And don't be afraid of those mistakes.
They're part of the process.
Exactly.
So what's one thing that really resonated with you from this deep dive?
You know, I think that growth mindset idea
Oh, yeah.
really stuck with me.
It's powerful.
It is. And I challenge everyone listening to think about one small step they can take today
Yeah.
to apply something they learned from our deep dive into English Dose.
Oh, I love that.
Maybe it's just writing one sentence in English.
Yeah.
Maybe it's listening to a 5-minute podcast.
Or even just thinking in English for a little bit.
Whatever it is, any step forward is a step in the right direction.
Absolutely. All right, that's all the time we have for today.
It was great chatting with you.
Same here. We'll see you all next time for another deep dive.
See you then.
Bye.
Bye.